Our morning continues. I had tried to make an arrangement, or as we like to call around here, arrangement, to get my high school best friend on the program during what was quarantine and these days of, shall we say, pandemic life. And his schedule, my schedule, and just schedules in general, it's made it kind of difficult. However, I think it all worked out the way it's supposed to, because we are now ready to welcome an Emmy Award winner to this radio program from my high school, Wentzville, Missouri, Wentzville High School, class of 1993. I welcome my friend and Emmy winner, Shaun Peterson. Good morning.
Good morning. It's strange to hear that, because it just happened.
How weird does that sound?
It does. It sounds really weird, but it's, you know what? It's great that I'm unpacking the whole thing with you, because I don't know if your audience realized this, but you know, my first foray into filmmaking was literally with you, and my first foray into editing. You know, you could literally, the things that you had in your bedroom are museum pieces, right?
You got that right.
Because you had that, what was it, Videonics? Is that what it's called?
The Direct Ed Plus, which was the biggest pile of trash looking back on it, but we thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, because basically what it was, this technology, for anyone that's younger, is it was a box that controlled two VCRs.
Yeah.
And you'd have your tape in one, your VHS tape in one, and you'd be editing to the next one, and then this little box would allow you to put little titles on the screen. It was a big deal then.
It was, but it was, so looking back on it, was like, why couldn't
And you were the editor. You were the editor on all of our movies.
Oh, that's true. Where's my Emmy?
Exactly. And that's the other thing too, that like your daughters won't be able to relate to this. Everybody has a video camera in their pocket now, right?
Could you imagine if we grew up with phones that we could have made our trilogy of movies, that we had to have high-end VCRs and high-end cameras to record all this stuff, to make these, what turned out to be these little adventures. Literally, the movie was called The Adventures of Shane Jones.
Right.
If we would have had a camera in our hand, the cell phone, the technology they're able to play with today, it's crazy what we literally came from the dark ages, I think.
We came from the dark ages, and again, I can't illustrate how instrumental you were in that, because my parent, we didn't have a video camera. Like most families did not have a video camera, and you guys had it. You know, your family, you had a video camera, and you had this stuff, and it was amazing because it's so ubiquitous now. But like that, it was still pretty rare back then. Not every family had a camera, especially a nice one like you. You had an SVHS camcorder.
Oh, yeah. I think to this day, if you would ask my mom back when we were younger, he only likes you for your video camera.
Oh, my God. Oh, no way. Because we got into all kinds of trouble outside the video camera, trust me. Keep in mind, there was a scene in a horror film where we were like, oh, yeah, well, we need to shoot the bad guy. We need to shoot him. And we were like, okay, well, in Hollywood, when it comes time to shooting someone, you just use some special effects. But Scott said, no, let's use a real shotgun.
Yeah.
And we shot a dummy. It was like a stuffed dummy, but you
were freaking out about the whole thing. And I told you, I got this. I got gun safety. I shoot skeet. Yeah.
Yeah. And Larry, your stepdad was in the finals for the Olympic skeet team, right? Like you were.
My stepbrother was, yeah.
Oh, okay, that's what it was. Yeah, so you guys were like a very pro, like you guys were professionals.
Yeah, I go, we could do this. And the best part was it was beautiful, but if you looked closely, you could see the newspaper instead of the guts, because we shot that dummy in half.
Now, come on. Now, this is radio, so we can't put up like a bunch of disclaimers on the screen. Kids, don't shoot dummies at home.
Yeah, without parental. I mean, they knew we were doing it. I asked permission before.
Oh yeah, you did. You did.
We weren't being secreted, but it was all under the.
There's no
supervision.
There was no supervision.
We were I don't know how old we were at that time. We were old enough
16.
Yeah, no one was harmed in the making of any of our movies.
Yeah.
It's interesting to look at, where you are today. Obviously, you've been in the we'll call it the movie business for what,
Yep.
the last 20 years?
Yeah, shoot. Longer. Well, yeah. No, that's about right. That's about right. A little. Yeah, a little before that, but yeah, exactly. And it's funny. I was talking to somebody about it recently and how things have changed. But when I moved to Los Angeles, I went to college and then I moved to Los Angeles. And it's a hard thing. And I think a lot of industries are like this. I talked to my brother about it when he was trying to look into construction in St. Louis, for example, which is a big union town. And you can't just waltz into the construction union hall and just say, give me a card. You have to be invited and nurtured. So any industry has a lot of like connections you have to have. And it's the same with Hollywood. And so I didn't know a soul. I didn't have an uncle that could hook me up. I'm not like, Jason Reitman, my dad didn't direct Ghostbusters. So there's a lot of talented people here, but the ones that know people, it can help them. So I started, you had to be crafty. So there was a show that I really liked on MTV called Biorhythm, which was kind of like a biography show on rock stars, but it's really fast paced and really fancy. Like, oh, that'd be a cool show to work on. So I just find out, and there's barely an internet at the time, right? This is 2000. Yeah, this is around 2000, 99, 2000. Yeah. There's no internet. So I in the phone book, I find where the MTV building is in Santa Monica. I waltz into this big building with a counter and security guards. And I walk up to the counter and I say, hey, I'd like to talk to the people that do Biorhythm. And they look at me like, what? And I was like, yeah, I'd like to talk to them. Like, do you have an appointment? Do you know who you want to talk to? And I was like, no. They're like, you have to leave, sir. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not gonna say no. I'm not gonna take no for an answer. So I went over on the edge and I hid behind a plant near the elevators. And when the security guards weren't looking, and the elevator opened, I ran into the elevator, and all the people in the elevator are like, what is going on here? And I said, hey, does anybody know what floor Biorhythm is on? And nobody knew. So I went from floor to floor to floor.
Just waiting to see it on the thing, right?
Yeah. So and you know how it is. We're from the Midwest. Like, you watch these movies and you see these kids that have like this gumption where you walk into the guy with a cigar and you tell them how it is. And they're like, I like your spirit, kid. You're hired. Now, that was my fantasy scenario. So I bust into this guy's office. I finally find him. He's the post-production supervisor, which I didn't even know what that meant then. And I didn't even know how to edit, keep in mind. Like, I didn't even know how to use Avid, the main editing software. But I busted into this guy's office, never been an assistant editor before. And I said, hi, my name is Shaun Peterson, and I am the best assistant editor in Los Angeles, and you should hire me. And his jaw dropped. He's like, who is this guy? Like, it's almost like being like Balky. Remember that show?
Oh, sure.
It's like you're this foreigner that doesn't understand how things work. And you so he was just like, what? And so he said, well, we're staffed up right now, but I gave him my phone number. And then by some stroke of luck, someone quit 2 days later.
Really?
And he just so happened to have my phone number right there on his desk. So he called me and he says, what the hell? Come on in. I didn't know what I was doing. So I would work the night shift, luckily. So I would just spend all night going through these amazing editor sequences. There's this guy, Australian guy, that was just incredible. And my friend Ford, who I'm still really like one of my best friends to this day, I was his assistant. And he's the guy that edited my feature film. Like, he's the guy I go to when I need something edited as a director. But I just went through all these guys' sequences and I learned how to edit on the job.
Wow.
And then this is the crazy part. A lot of people will spend a decade as an assistant editor. 4 months later, this one editor was so overwhelmed that I was his assistant. He said, hey, Shaun, can you help me edit this show? So I jumped into the editing chair after only being an assistant for 4 months. So at the age of 22, I became an MTV editor, and I just have been editing since. So it was crazy. It was kind of fake it till you make it.
My Lord, that's a movie.
You kind of, yeah, it kind of is. sometimes I kind of have to, I don't know if you're like this, but sometimes like last weekend, I went up to my college town, Santa Cruz, went to UC Santa Cruz, and I just wanted to connect with my younger self. I mean, I kind of went on this like spiritual vision quest, right? So I go to my college campus, which is completely abandoned because of COVID.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to reconnect with my younger self, the guy who's like, the world is your oyster, the guy that was like, anything's possible, the guy that was like, where you're just in this creative hub. And I don't know if it was like that for you in Lindenwood, but you were, you're in this college and you're doing your radio show. You don't have to worry about bills or children or
life.
Yeah. And it was really great. And I have to remind myself of those kind of stories where if you just have the blind, youthful courage to bust into MTV and not take no for an answer, you still need that as a grown up, but you sometimes lose it.
Yeah. And for you end up with this great career. 9 other people get the crap beat out of and thrown out of the place. They're blacklisted. Right. So you've got that. Right. You've got that a little bit of luck. And sometimes they say it's better to be lucky than good. You have a pretty good balance of both. It certainly seems.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, there's also been lots of times when, like, look, Hollywood is the what do they call it? Like a lame duck Congress, like the party of no or whatever.
Yeah.
Both parties accuse themselves of that, and Hollywood is like the city of no. Like I'm constantly pitching shows, and you hear no all the time.
They're so comfortable saying it. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to get thick skin because you're constantly rejected. If you think about the average American, I mean, what do they have? Like maybe 10 job interviews a year or a lifetime?
Yeah.
Because you get to a job and you stick with it, and you don't have to do it, but you're doing 10 or 12 job interviews a month. And so you're constantly, because you work on a gig and then you move on to the next one. There's no full-time editor or full-time director really. So so there's a lot of rejection but the thick skin can be also make you jaded. So you have to balance that in your life of like letting it roll off of you, but still having hope and youthful ambition. It's a balance.
I wonder after we have our morning with Shaun Peterson, the Emmy-winning Shaun Peterson, how many people are going to kick down their boss's door and quit today because they're ready to chase after their real dreams. You chase after your early dreams in the beginning, and here you are living out those dreams. It's your reality. We haven't even scratched the surface. We got to talk. I'm looking forward to finding out more about Peanuts in Space, Secrets of Apollo 10, which you won the Emmy for. I want to find out about that. And I think it would be probably fitting, if you don't mind, if you have the time, maybe a memory jog or few of the good old days, like that time you mentioned shooting the body double with the gun because it made more sense than trying to use fireworks or whatever else we were going to use as an alternative. You can hang for a little bit. You got the time.
Oh, yeah.
For
sure.
I certainly appreciate it. We'll put Shaun on standby for a moment or two as we finish off this first half of our Tuesday morning. Yeah. How many of you would pull that? I'm the best assistant editor in Hollywood, and they'd beat the holy hell out of most of us. Billy Club to the head a dozen or so times. Coming up, more with Shaun Peterson as our Tuesday morning continues. We continue our morning with a catch-up with an old friend, and you do realize I'm going to run this Emmy thing into the ground, probably. You've earned it. You've earned it, so I'm going to run this Emmy thing into the ground. Emmy Award winner for Outstanding Single Camera Editing. It's my old friend, Shaun Peterson. I had to ask this question before we get into Peanuts in Space. You and I, looking at each other here today, you have this youthful vibrance to you. And I have a get off my stoop I got this old man get off my stoop kind of thing going on. Where did I go wrong? And how do you stay so youthful?
Well, I mean, I don't know. There's who knows? I mean, there's something about the California life that kind of gives you a little bit of a, maybe it's not, maybe there's no hard winters. There's no like, who knows? Maybe this has something to do with it. I've been a vegan for 21 years.
I'm sure that probably has a lot to do with it.
Here's the biggest thing. I never had kids.
Oh, well, hold on. Ding, 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 ding. I think we got it. Yeah. I think we found it. Yeah, I think we got it.
Yeah. I think if you did, I bet you $1 million if you took the time to count your gray hairs, it would coincide with the amount of days each of your daughters have been alive.
No doubt about it. Yeah. So, would you have ever taken a bet if we would have been, let's say, sophomore, juniors, by the time we were driving, would you have taken a bet that I would ever have kids as much as I hated kids?
Oh, that's true. You were like, this references to who know? I don't know what your demo of your audience is, but you were literally like W.C. Fields' grandson. You know, get off my lawn, you little brats. You know, you were like, yes, you hated kids. In fact, okay, everybody, check this out. So Scott and I were. It is a coveted honor at Winsville High School that when you're a senior, you could become a counselor for the 4th grade camp. And when you're in the Winsville School District, now keep in mind, our school district had one elementary school, one middle school, and one high school. That was it. It was a small thing. Yeah. But anybody that went to 4th grade camp, that was the thing you remember forever, you know? And my brother talked about his counselor. He still talks about his 4th grade camp counselor. It was a big thing, right? So we got selected as like student body president and vice president to be counselors. And I'm like, wait a second. You hate kids. What are they doing to these kids? Yeah. Well, you were great, actually. You were great.
You asked, he goes, why are you doing this? What in the hell? And I said, it's a week out of school.
That's true.
What am I going to? Well, stay in school for a week or go camping or be out for a week and boss kids around. I mean, it seemed like a no-brainer to me. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, or you can indoctrinate them with how kids should be.
Yeah,
like
you
can retrain these wild kids.
Yeah, they ask questions, in the interview process. Do you like kids? I think kids are great. I think kids are our future. I lied and I lied and I lied. And of course, who was my favorite kids? The ones that were the troublemakers that should have been in trouble. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They were my star. They were my stars.
I do believe so. One of the guys that ran the camp was our gym teacher, Mr. Gaffron, and I think he from elementary school. And I know Gaffron got back at me because I will say this: the kids I had in my cabin were definitely the biggest misfits in the history of the school district. I had all 5 of the worst kids ever, all in my camp. Do you remember that one kid went number 2 in his pants on day 2 of camp? He went number 2 in his pants and he would not change his pants.
I do remember that.
I could not. And every time I would try to talk about it, he would immediately start crying. So Gaffron says, Peterson, you got to get that kid's pants changed. I don't care what you got to do. Figure it out. I said, I am a 17-year-old boy. You are a teacher. Can you take this over? This is beyond what I signed up for. This is when the school board comes in and takes over for me. Oh, speaking of that, Scott,
there's a fine line.
Hold on. Wait a second. Was it my cabin or your cabin where one of the school board's children was either in my cabin or your cabin? I think it was mine.
It had to have been yours.
I had one of the guys that was on the school board. His son or grandson or whatever was in my cabin.
Oh, my
Lord. It was a disaster. I thought I was dead.
Put him in with the president of student council. So they thought they were stacking the cabin. You bring up our 6th grade math teacher, Mr. Gaffron. That's a name I've not heard in a long time. We're talking with my high school friend, Shaun Peterson, who for the better part of 20 years has worked in the movie industry in Hollywood. We're going to talk about Peanuts in Space, Secrets of Apollo 10 coming up. Mr. Gaffron was the villain in our big movie we made. So talk about an impact he left for all the wrong reasons. And
I mean, we literally kind of made our own version of Wizard of Oz, right? Where we took all these people in our real life.
Yeah.
You know, like the part in Dorothy, we're like, oh, and you were there. And you were there.
Yeah, that's exactly.
We took in our movies, one of the villains was, our gym teacher, and then I don't know how you describe the character. I think he was just kind of like the anti-hero.
Yeah,
Mr. Jacqueline.
Oh, that's right.
was one of another character. He was kind of a bad guy, kind of not. You kind of felt for him, and I'm trying to think who else.
The librarian, yeah.
That you played.
I played her, yeah.
A female, her. Keep in mind that we just revealed.
That was the first time I grew facial hair, actually.
That's true.
Because I played the librarian, and she had a mustache.
Yeah, she had a mustache. And guys, also keep in mind that there was a lot of, there's a lot of cross-dressing in our past. Because keep in mind, we also had to leave camp, because that was the talent show.
Oh, that's right.
To go play the transvestite headbangers in the talent show.
That was our farewell tour. Yeah.
Yeah, where we would get dressed in women's garb and lip sync to heavy metal songs.
Yeah, we tore it down that final year. I actually had to go back to do that and Elvis. I don't even know how the Elvis thing came about, but I had to play Elvis, and there's a shot.
That's right.
There's a shot of me in the yearbook as Elvis.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you made that jumpsuit look good.
Yeah, I had a little beer belly there. Do what we got to do. I was eating my peanut butter and banana sandwiches. Got to do what we got to do. Yeah, I haven't thought about some of these people you're name dropping here today. They all kind of were featured in our movie. Mr. Gaffron got me on the zip wire, because what we did was we used to follow him around like in 7th and 8th grade and like yell at him in the hallway, and we were we were just as much in the wrong as he was, probably looking back on it. I'd say 60-40 if you're being fair.
For sure.
But he had me hanging from the zip wire, and he said, "You got anything you want to say? Because I literally have your life in my hands."
Are you joking? I didn't know. Oh my God. That was his dream come true. He could finally destroy you. I mean, keep in mind, another friend of ours, Dawn Bryant, years later, Dawn became a teacher at Wentzville School District, and she actually found herself in his mobile home looking at his glass display case filled with antique beer cans in his trailer.
His prized possession. And
I'm like, Dawn, how did you get in there? Did he roofie you? And she goes, that's a long story.
I was chained in a cage. I came to, and this
all circles back to like the creative life, right?
Yeah.
It is amazing how past experiences and past people inform what you how you end up, what you do in life, what you write about. Like if you have a really colored past and a colorful cast of characters in your upbringing, it can make their way into your creative life for sure.
Yep, and they often do. In addition to editing, you have dabbled in directing both the motion picture as well as television projects. I think what we're going to do is we're going to come back. Damn it, Shaun, we're talking about Peanuts in Space when we come back. Okay. I mean, you won an Emmy for this.
Yeah, and it was fun. It was Ron Howard, and and Jeff Goldblum's in it. It was it was a fun thing. We'll talk about.
I had initially planned to lead with this, and then nostalgia took over pretty quick. Catching up with an old friend for the first time. It's been a while since we've had a chance to catch up. I missed our 20th high school reunion, so it's been a while.
Oh, you were missed.
It's been some time, so we're going to come back and we're going to talk about this Peanuts in Space project, which won this guy an Emmy. We'll do that as our morning continues. Some of these names. Oh my goodness. In addition to more with Shaun Peterson, Emmy award-winning Shaun Peterson, we'll get our letter and our category. Today's category still to come. And they're not the biggest headlines, certainly for the morning, but somewhere they're headlines. This is news. Good morning. I'm Scott Patric. Mr. G. Like your outfit, Mr. G. Looking real good. So my plan was to welcome my high school buddy Shaun Peterson to the show, which, yes, we finally accomplished that. Then the plan was to talk about this project that won him an Emmy Award. Well, nostalgia took over for the last couple of breaks. Let's talk Peanuts in Space, Secrets of Apollo 10, the project that won you an Emmy Award last week. My Lord.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. And you know, and it's funny. So I'll give you the quick history on it. Okay. So on Peanuts in Space, because you know how it is. Relationships are important in a lot of fields. And so back in 2000, I met this young director named Morgan Neville, and I started editing for him. And so we edited a bunch of great documentaries. We edited one on Carole King and Jerry Goffin, you know, and they wrote all those hits like Natural Woman. And this was all for the A&E channel. And we did one on Lieber and Stoller, and they were a writing team. They wrote Hound Dog and a bunch of the hits.
Oh, okay. I thought that sounded familiar. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we did one on Burt Bacharach. You know, he did all those Dionne Warwick songs. And then we did one, then we did one on Muddy Waters. And that was actually nominated in the Grammys. You know, Grammys are for music, but they also have a documentary category for music documentary. So that was nominated for a Grammy, which was great. It was a whole documentary, Muddy Waters. And so we did a bunch of work together back in early 2000. And then I just kind of lost touch with Morgan, you know, but Morgan went on to win an Academy Award for the movie 20 Feet from Stardom. It was, and if you haven't seen it, it's a great documentary about backup singers, famous backup singers, like the women that did the backup singing for Sweet Home Alabama. You know, those like that. Okay. You know, he interviewed, and there was a group of them that were in tons of those songs. So it's a great documentary. He won an Oscar for it. And then he also did the Mr. Rogers documentary that came out last year.
Oh, yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah, and so he's great. And so I got reacquainted with him. I reached out to him. We hadn't talked to him. Hey, Morgan. And here, actually, this is a little Wentzville tidbit. The reason I got back in touch with Morgan is because if you remember, Yoel Carter was a foreign exchange student from Spain.
Yeah.
And when I was a pretty conservative young man in 10th grade in Mrs. Simmons' class, and here's this girl from Spain, a very socialist country, and her and I would just debate in class, me and this girl whose English wasn't that strong, and I would just kind of mow over her.
Well, sure.
Yeah, right. So Yoel Carter, we stayed in touch. After all these years. She moved to Los Angeles and is teaching Spanish at the Waldorf School in Pasadena. And so she reached out to me, and we hung out, me and her kids and stuff. And it just so happened that not only is who's the funny actor that's in Step Brothers? Not Will Ferrell, but the other guy,
John C. Reilly.
Yeah. So John C. Reilly's kids go there, and he directs all the plays for the kids at the school.
Nice.
And Morgan Neville's kids go there. So this director I worked with. So somehow in this small world, she goes, "Oh yeah, somehow you came up." And Morgan said, "You're the best editor in Los Angeles." And I said, "He said that?" And I haven't talked to him in like 15 years. She goes, "Yeah, he said that about you." And I'm like, "Oh, I want to reach out to him." So I reached out to Morgan, and he said, "Hey, I have this little project that might be fun." And so I took the job, and it was this project called Peanuts in Space. And it was for Apple Plus. And if you don't know, Apple Plus has their own streaming network like Netflix and like Amazon does. And they're brand new, just new this year. And the project was a fun little family type documentary that talks about the Apollo 10 mission. And if you don't know, Apollo 10 was the mission right before Apollo 11. It was the test flight. So they did everything Apollo 11 did except land on the moon. So they wanted to make sure everything and all the machinery was perfect so that the 11 guys could do it.
Yeah.
And there were no kinks. So for fun, and this is all true, they named the 2 modules Snoopy and Charlie Brown just for fun. The 2 spaceship modules.
So there's your logical connection.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, right. So then they said, let's do a fun little documentary where we have Jeff Goldblum in it and Ron Howard is in it, and he's also producing it. And they play in this. So it's kind of partially documentary, partially just kind of for fun, mockumentary, where they kind of have this conspiracy theory that the Peanuts cartoon characters themselves were actually involved in the mission. So it's really fun for kids. So we have a lot of animation in it. The actual Peanuts gang is in it, and they're looking at all these pictures and with a with a magnifying glass, and then in the background of this whole picture,
nice.
Charlie Brown is back there in the control room, and so it's really fun. But then there's also a lot of real information about the mission, interviewing the actual astronauts from the mission. And it was great because I don't know if you're familiar with Jeff Goldblum's work, but this guy doesn't follow a script, right?
He
just goes.
Was it Earth Women Are Easy, or what was it? What that's one of his finest. Finest pictures, I believe.
Sure. Or even going all the way back to The Fly, right?
Yes.
So he's hilarious, and of course Jurassic Park is one of his biggest ones. But this guy doesn't follow scripts, right? He just goes on and on and on. And so as an editor, you have to make sense of it. So it was really fun but challenging to take someone that's rambling and whittle it down so it seems like it's a cohesive thing.
I have a feeling I'm going to know exactly how that feels in about 25 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah, we've just been rambling, haven't we? We've just been rambling. But it was so fun. And here's the thing too, and here's one of the funny things about Hollywood. I was down in the basement of this editing facility, and upstairs there was a secret project, and there were 2 security guards standing outside the door of this other office. And Morgan, the director, he only came and saw me as I was editing twice for an hour each time, because he was so preoccupied with this other show that was upstairs that nobody could know about. Secret. So the great thing about this project is I could kind of do whatever I wanted. I kind of made it my own. So I didn't have a lot of guidance. I was like, okay, well, if nobody's going to talk to me about it, I'm just going to make this piece myself.
So you didn't have any notes or anything? You just had
I got some notes from the network as I went.
And a few things?
Yeah, there was a script that I kind of threw out the window and just started from scratch. And because, you kind of had to, because Jeff Goldblum started from scratch. Ron Howard kind of kept his lines, but then I had to find all these documentary elements where they interviewed people, and you can't really script that. So it gave me a lot of creative freedom, and the interesting, mysterious thing about an editor is that sometimes you have directors that are just right on top of you, and you're basically pushing buttons at their whim. And sometimes you have a director who's hands off, and you just can kind of do whatever you want.
You're the best editor in LA, so he was competent.
Oh, I mean, that's hyperbole for sure.
But he clearly trusted you, even if he did have a big project upstairs. He wasn't going to leave this completely unless he trusted what you were going to do with it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a testament that he must have meant that when he said that.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you want to know what the secret project was, a year later,
I was going to ask, but I was afraid that all of a sudden you'd get shot dead.
No, because this was a year and a half ago now. It was the Taylor Swift documentary that's on Netflix. I think it's on Netflix.
Of course it was.
Of course it was. So I think they had security guards outside the door as if someone's going to barge in there.
You're down there working with the Peanuts characters, and you got Taylor Swift on the first floor.
Exactly.
You're down in the basement.
I was down in the basement with Charlie Brown. Of course, that's totally Charlie Brown.
That's totally, I was going to say that's pretty much appropriate for Charlie Brown. And look at the connection with the foreign exchange student that you were friends with in high school. And how that whole connection was made all these years later.
Wild?
And
it just occurred to me.
All she did for me was go home. I came home from school one day and I went, "Mom, we have got to get a foreign exchange student."
Oh my God.
Whenever,
oh my God.
I used to ask her for video cameras back in the day. I thought it might be worth to ask.
Exactly. Oh yeah. She definitely caused a stir. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. She caused something. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that wild? It just occurred to me now. That's full circle how that all kind of came about. In fact, on Facebook, I even said to her, I said, I have you to thank for this, because you brought Morgan back into my mind.
It's crazy what they say. The way you treat people and the relationships that you make through your life are important. You don't even realize how important they potentially could be down the road, and this is a perfect example of that.
Yeah. To be honest with you, a while back, about 2 years ago, even though I've done a lot of work and I have a lot of stuff on my resume, about 2 years ago, I went on LinkedIn and I was like, okay, I got to make some new contacts, and and I reached out to 100 people, and I didn't get one response back, even though I have a lot of stuff on my resume. Because people work with who they know. I've worked with the same three executive producers, for the last 20 years, over and over again. They just, because you build that relationship and you just keep working with them over and over again. And it's really hard to break into a new door because they all have their favorite people too. And you become friends. This guy, Paul Barros, that was one of the creators behind the music, I edited behind the music a lot with him. And to this day, he's almost kind of like a father figure for me. I work on everything that he works on. In fact, I did a really fun project. I don't want to get political here, but it was some commercials for the Democratic Party starring Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because Paul
Bennis.
Yeah, exactly. Because Paul and Julia and Brad, her husband, all went to college together. So they're all friends. So I had it was pretty. I never got to meet Julia because I was editing, but I met her husband, who was the news anchor on Saturday Night Live.
I was gonna say I hit Brad. I want to say Brad Hall.
Brad Hall. That's it. Yeah, and he was the news anchor on Saturday Night Live, and I had him here in my.
That's how they met. Yeah, I think they met on Saturday. Because I didn't realize she was part of the cast. Yeah.
They met in college.
They met before.
Girlfriend. Yeah, and they went there. Yeah, with Paul. Yeah,
she was on the Saturday Night Live cast. They both were during what was the Eddie Murphy era.
Exactly. Oh wow, you're good. Yeah, you got your history down.
Yeah, you don't spend as much time in front of the boob tube like I have without remembering or learning a couple things.
Exactly. Yeah. It's true. And she's great. She is so funny. And this was the first thing she was in after her bout with cancer. So
okay.
It was kind of an interesting time, but it's funny how those kind of relationships, that's what it is. You really can't be a jerk in this industry. There's a lot of the era of like outrageous directors who would throw fits on set and be mean to people. That is pretty much over, because you can't be mean anymore. You can't get away with that stuff.
I would never make it. If I don't have a J-boy to beat up, I slap around. I'll be lost. That's for sure. I had no idea. Actually, I had a pretty good idea. This is exactly how this was going to play out. You got time for one more? Or do we have to part ways?
Oh yeah, sure. No, I can do one.
All
more.
right. More with the Emmy Award-winning Shaun Peterson as we continue our Tuesday morning. Coming up, they're not the biggest headlines, certainly for the morning, but somewhere they're headlines. This is news and your answers for today's categories. Oh, boy. Flavors that start with the letter P. Hey, I can't say that on the radio. It's always great when you get a chance to catch up with an old friend. Probably haven't spoken more than a handful of words or maybe an occasional text in the last several years. In fact, probably last couple of decades. And here we are, welcoming back one more time. Did I mention this guy won an Emmy Award? The Emmy Award-winning Shaun Peterson, my high school best friend, returning. We covered Snoopy, or Peanuts in Space, your Emmy Award-winning project. You won that for editing.
Yeah, I want to say one other thing about it, if you don't mind. It's weird. It's a weird year, right? Because of COVID.
Yeah.
Because normally, you'd win the award. Now, these categories like editing and directing and stuff, those are never on television for TV, for the Emmy TV Awards. But they normally would still have it in the auditorium, and you wear a tux or a suit, and you still get to go on stage and accept your award. And there's all these galas and parties and all this kind of stuff. And none of that happened. The way I found out was all those categories, they announced the winners on Twitter. So every 60 seconds, they'd put up this animated graphic as who the winner was of these categories on Twitter. So I'm sitting here on my computer alone in my house, whatever, refreshing my Twitter feed. And then I'm like, oh, what? And I couldn't believe it. I didn't believe my eyes. Yeah. So it was kind of a deflated balloon this year.
Yeah. Well, it'll be the asterisk when you win your next one. You can go back and go, well, the first one I won. Yeah, and then it's the daytime Emmy. So if you would have been there, you would have been probably next to the Muppets. You would have had Sesame Street on one side of you. You would have had Ellen. You'd have had the Days of Our Lives cast. That would have been
Alex Trebek probably.
That would have been great. That would have been great.
Yeah,
I was hoping you'd get John Black's autograph for me from Days of Our Lives, but
oh yes,
it didn't work out.
Yeah, those guys were all in there. I could have seen that plastic surgery up close.
Yes, it would have been. It would have been quite the experience. When we were kids, Shaun was the one who had the idea to do the video yearbook. And then eventually that turned into the movies we'd make as kids, some real hits, some classics like The Adventures of Shane Jones. Who could forget Bob the movie? We had a few we made, but you always had the definitive idea of how you wanted a movie or whatever project we were working on, how you wanted it to go, which we assumed that would be the director's chair. But you were instrumental, even though I was pushing start and stop. You were basically editing even back then. Do you like editing? Because you've always wanted to be a director, and you have directed. Let's establish that. You have directed, and you do direct. Yeah. Do you like editing?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, look, I spent like 3 or 4 years at Disney directing a lot of stuff for Disney, which was a lot of fun. I have a love-hate with editing, right? Because part of it, this is how it's funny that you bring this up. I talk about you quite a bit because I said, I talk about Scott Patric, who's a DJ, and your job is sitting in a chair, and that's what an editor is too. Your job, you are sitting down nonstop. You don't get up. You're just always in a chair in a dark room. And literally, the last couple jobs I had before COVID, I can work from home now, are the size of a prison cell, and there's no windows. Nice. You're in a dark room, gray room, the size of a prison cell with the lights out, and it's a depressing way to live life a little bit, and when you're just sitting for 12 hours in a dark room. And but here's the thing. This is the analogy I have for editing for people that may or may not understand it. Everybody out, every like directors and the camera guy, the director of photography, I say those guys are like farmers, right? They grow all the food, and then they bring all this food to you, and you're the chef. You take all this food and you cook something out of it, right? Because you have all these raw materials and tons of it. In the case of a documentary, I did a documentary on the Cyrus family, Billy Ray Cyrus and mainly Noah Cyrus, the youngest daughter.
Oh, wow.
And I literally had 300 hours of footage.
Oh, my God.
To turn into an hour and a half.
Now, was this before or after he chopped off his mullet?
Oh, this is well, he's kind of growing it back. He has a hybrid mullet right now.
Okay.
Well, speaking of awards, he won a Grammy for Old Town Road.
Did he?
That he did with Lil Nas X.
Really? I didn't realize that.
You got to ask your daughter about it. She'll know. Because there's this amazing rap song, and it was a country rap song. And so the Billboard said this doesn't qualify as country because it's rap. And then they were saying, oh, you're kind of being racist here because the genre is evolving. So what he did is they got Billy Ray, and Billy Ray was like, you know what? Let's do a new version of it, and I'll sing on it, and then it'll be country.
Nice.
And then that became the longest #1 hit on Billboard in history, beating out Elvis, the Beatles. It was the longest #1 hit in history.
You may have to dig that one up.
Yeah, and it's a great song. So Billy Ray is this. It was a great project, but he's my hero because he is like this. You think of Achy Breaky Heart, but this guy is like is a Southern poet. Like he can pontificate on philosophy for hours, and He's amazing.
Hey, we were Hannah Montana fans in my house, so
Oh, sure.
The Hannah Montana movie's still on my shelf to this day. So what can I say? What can I say?
They're an epic family. But it was fun. I got to hang out with those guys and film them and go to their compound and stuff. But an editor it's the final say in any project. You make the project. You are taking all this stuff and crafting it, and it's amazing how one sliver of a second in timing can really make the difference in a scene or a moment. They call them beats,
Sure.
That needs a little beat, a little bit, and it's a craft and it's an art, so I have a love-hate with it.
So you had to choose tomorrow your next gig, editing or directing?
Oh, directing for sure.
Directing, yeah.
Although that is a little bit of a young man's game because that's a tiring job. But I kind of like doing both. To be honest, if I could be greedy, I'd say both.
Just do everything.
Direct myself.
You're gonna be like Bugs Bunny in that one episode where you're playing all the positions.
Right, exactly.
With today's technology, you could direct, you could edit, you could star. It's the Shaun Peterson project.
Well, it's funny. It right now that's what I'm doing. So I'm doing a pilot with I don't know if you know. Do you know who Jason Mantzoukas is? He's in he was in everything. The Lego movie. I'm looking at his thing here. He was in Parks and Rec a lot, and he was. Did you see?
I'd probably recognize him then. Yeah.
So he's going to be in my pilot, and
nice.
Paul Scheer, who's another comedian, and so I'm doing animation right now because with COVID, no one's shooting, no one's filming anything, so I can now direct and edit from home because it's animation. So I go on Zoom and I record everybody's voice over Zoom, and then I animate it here at my house. And so I'm kind of really liking.
So you're doing all the drawing and everything?
Christopher Pollard, another Winslow
high school friend, nice,
does the drawings, and then I cut them up and paint them, and I make them all move around and talk. And
does this guy? Does he ever need anyone to do a voiceover?
I know,
give me a call, for God's sake! I keep these channels open because I'm trying to get something out of it.
It's all about the relationships. Exactly.
I appreciate the walk down memory lane, but a couple bucks and a gig might be nice too. I want to share this text because you and I have had this friendship. We started in 6th grade when you first moved to school, and Big Shot shows up and he needs a pen, and then I lend him this ink pen for half the day, and then for some reason I needed it back, and you would not return it because the obligation was to the end of the day.
Yeah, right. That was the deal.
Pretty much, you're like, I need it for the rest of the day. The day's not over, and then you and I went to battle for about 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks.
Yep.
Enemies, and then you wickedly burned an enemy of mine, and then I thought you were the coolest because it was a great burn. I thought that was awesome, and then we became allies. What a dumb reason to be friends, or even better, not to be friends.
Right, exactly.
So that's how our friendship started all the way through high school, and we've parted ways, but occasionally we'll shoot texts back and forth, or we'll see each other if we're both able to make it to a high school reunion where I think we're in agreement. Could you imagine if we would have lost our senior year?
Right.
I mean, it's crazy.
When you told me your daughter lost her senior year, I literally mourned for her. I did, because I just can't even fathom it.
Unbelievable.
That's one of the best years of my life to this day, like in the top 3 best years of my life.
If I could go back in time to relive one year, that would be one of the years I would put down.
Precisely, because we'd had so much going on, and we were such a lovely, safe bubble.
Yeah,
Wentzville, Missouri, our high school, our teachers, our actual class of people. We just were very lucky.
It's very similar to what my life is here in what I call Maxland. It's got the same kind of vibe. We had the big city just down the road, but we have small town America. And we have, not a lot of worries. And that's one of the reasons I think why I've stayed here, because it reminds me of a lot of what Wentzville was.
Yeah.
It's certainly not that way now. It's become a booming metropolis through the years. But it was such an amazing time to find your way. I would have done a few things differently, including I'd have been drinking my Busch Lights out of a short glass a lot sooner than my 40s. I want to get to this text, and here we are again, just burning up the morning, and we have to take a break. We have to take a break. So I'm not even going to ask this time. Hold on. Put you on, we call it standby. We'll wrap things up with I don't know if I've mentioned this. I don't think I have. We'll wrap things up with the Emmy award-winning Shaun Peterson coming up. Clock just getting away from us this morning. This is the most jogging I've done in a long time. Memory jogging with an old friend. If I had a visual here, we'd have the clock, and the arm would just be going just out of control. Running out of time. We're literally running out of time. Not much left in this Tuesday morning. We welcome Shaun Peterson back. I mentioned this text earlier. You know, when you don't get together with somebody you haven't seen, I mean, I couldn't tell you the last time I actually saw you. But, we get texts back and forth. That's kind of the way people communicate these days. And I want to share this one particular text that you and I had shared, because this is what happens when you're one of your old friends, lifelong friends, sends you a text, your LA big shot friend. And I get this text one night. Yo, dog, I think I missed your email about Owen wanting to edit. And then you go on, and you give some sort of suggestion on some sort of program that they should use. And I return the text with, I think you've sent this text to the wrong person. Who was that text for?
That text was for Scott, but Scott Underwood, who is the drummer of the band Train.
Oh, okay. So there you go. Scott Patric, no, loser in Cornfield. Scott Underwood, guy from Train. I laughed and I laughed and I laughed.
I mean, I have two Scotts in my life, you and Underwood, and his son wanted to start like editing or be doing animation or something, and I was like, oh my god! And he and I have this vernacular of like, yo dog, what's up?
I just thought that was funny. I think I responded with, yo dog, you're talking to the wrong guy, doofus. Or I came back with a yo dog myself.
That was, that's funny. I will have to say too, that's another pivotal moment in my life. The Train guys gave me my first big break, because I was doing some interesting animation back in the year 2000 when I lived in New York, and I had met him through a mutual friend, and they gave me a shot doing their music video for the song Calling All Angels.
Nice.
And that was my first directing job, doing a huge music video for Sony Columbia Records, and they gave me my shot, and it was great. It was a big hit video and stuff and they took a chance on me, and it was awesome. And those guys, I work with them a lot, like doing documentaries and stuff. And they're sweet guys. I mean, they've kind of broken up a little bit. Yeah. Like Scott, the band isn't what it isn't. The remaining of Train is Pat, the singer, and all new people. But again, that's the relationship stuff. It's like, but at the end of the day, like you've met famous people before.
Yeah, I met that. It's like, I met the corned queen of Clinton County. Yeah, I got my.
But it's funny. At the end of the day, a lot of famous people. Scott Underwood grew up in a small town in northern, upstate New York. He's a small town boy, and it's somehow things lined up for that guy,
And it's funny. You'll talk to people, and at the end of the day, something that most people will be like, "That's amazing." It's like, it's just my job. It's my thing. It's what I do.
Right.
And we don't. Right. It's just like everyone has their thing and their job and what they do. Yeah. It just so happens a lot of us idolize and emulate to some degree. But yeah, right. I got that text one night while I was yelling at my kid about cleaning up her room. So it was a nice reality check there for where Shaun is and where I am.
Oh my God, Jesus Christ.
Yo, dog. It's been an absolute pleasure to get a chance to catch up with you. And really, if anyone, I can't think of anyone who's more deserving of an accomplishment, an award, winner. Your dedication from the time you were a kid. His first video, I believe, was the Zeus Protection Agency, where we made a video in 7th grade, and you were Zeus, and you had your son Hercules. He was the muscle, and he beat up your brother, and I filmed it. And you spelt Zeus Z-U-E-S.
That's how I would still spell it. That's how I would still spell it.
I know exactly that's how you would spell it. Shaun, there's a lot of things Shaun does very well. Spelling is not one of them. It was a project for our 7th grade. It was like we were studying the...
Are you joking?
You don't remember that?
No. Oh, I would give anything to...
The Zeus Protection Agency. I bet you I have it on a tape somewhere.
I'm calling your mom. I'm calling your mom tomorrow, and I'm going to go over to your guys' house and get all those VHS tapes.
Yeah, they're somewhere. I got them somewhere. Yeah, that was 7th grade, and then I think Donald, our buddy Donald, who was your friends by proximity. He lived next door to you. I knew him from school.
Yeah.
And he choked your brother out. We were afraid that he killed your brother. You're like,
yeah, he was like all district football player.
You don't have to really beat him up. It's just acting, and that was like one of your first directing gigs.
I know. Donald was a method actor murderer.
Yeah. So I wrote Zeus Z-U-E-S because you were always one to spell just a little off.
Oh my God. Yeah, there were some quirks. And it's funny, and I want to remind people what your mom said the other day. Say hi to Shaun for me. Tell him thanks for breaking half the stuff in our house. Because I'm also very clumsy. I'm also extraordinary, and still to this day I am too.
Yeah.
I am constantly. I can't believe I'm not in a wheelchair.
The best thing that ever happened was when they finally replaced the deck on the back of the house. Because for like 8 years after the Adventures of Shane Jones Part 2, where we went after a guy with a chainsaw, we got chainsaw oil and fake blood all over the deck, and we ruined our deck.
Everywhere. Yeah, I do remember.
And to the day that deck was ripped off the back of the house, I did not hear the end of it when Shaun Peterson is damn movies.
And then keep in mind also our 10th grade health teacher, who was also the all-state football coach, a legend. Our football stadium is now named after him, Mr. Swafford. Had everyone in all of his classes as an assignment watch our movie in his class.
That's right.
Which was a just violent, bloody mess, and he loved it.
And you can hear him laughing when we're chopping people up and shooting them in half with the shotgun. And
this is the guy
just laughing.
This is the guy that would get down and give all the big speeches at the assemblies.
That's right.
He was like the face of our lives, and he was our biggest fan. He was so supportive. It's like that. We should have given an executive producer credit.
No kidding.
Honestly.
He deserved it. I know we both deserve the A's we got because we got A's in health class because of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we never got anyone pregnant, which is good. So we got that class too. He was very big on don't get anyone pregnant.
Yeah, and we were, also the type that they would hang out with us, but they would date the jocks.
Exactly.
That's how it usually worked. Well, let's not wait till the next Emmy win to do this. It was great catching up.
I know. Let's not. This is fun. This is so fun.
Absolutely.
It's great to see you in your element. You guys are lucky to have that voice beaming out at you every day. Seriously.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and congratulations once again on the Emmy. You can find the project. It's the Peanuts in Space, the Apollo 10. It's the secret, if you will, the Apollo 10, and that's available on Apple TV. This guy right here put it together and won an Emmy for it. Our thanks to Emmy Award winner Shaun Peterson, pretty much giving us most of his morning. There's not much left. We'll tie up any loose ends that need to be tied, and we'll finish off what's left of our Tuesday morning next.